Alright, so this is episode 3 of Chanimal-ments, and for this episode I made a lot of content specifically for it. So most of the clips in this video are from makeup boulders I made for my athletes during one of our practices. So I just wanted to go through them one by one and talk about the intent of each one and how I made them up. So these first few boulders I'm going to show are a lot more physical with some complex movement. For the first climb I really wanted to use this big slopey yellow rail. And make a move off of it where your feet had to cut, because it's pretty hard to hold on to it if you don't have feet on. And then holding the swing out off the blue jug is pretty difficult because it's not down pulling like my normal dynos are. So I was pretty satisfied with how this one turned out, and the technical heel hook to match the finish at the top and go to the finish hold gave the athletes a good amount of trouble. For the second climb, this paddle dyno was pretty simple, but it required you not to jump too hard to that purple rail, the hold you paddle off of, so you're still able to pull off of it to get to the green hold. And one of my athletes, Josh Kavanaugh, actually showed me this dyno, so shout out to him. So for the second half of the climb, it's not too bad, but I did want to switch up the style a little bit and add some smaller holds and some directional holds. So these purple ledges are perfect for directional body position climbing because they're not in cut, so you really have to use your feet well and set yourself up for the movement. So the goal of the second climb was really just to add variation to the styles of the climbs that I was making up for the athletes. For this third climb, I didn't really have many of my athletes try it, but it's pretty cool. It has like this tricky start dyno to like an undercling and a mantle, and then the finish is pretty delicate. And I want to see how flowy I can make it, so that's why I climb it really fast. But the goal of this climb was really to switch up from very powerful movement to a lot more delicate and intentional movement. So using the arete and that big foot was a great way to do that. It almost creates kind of a slab wall on a vertical wall, so I was pretty happy with how it turned out. The next climbs are a lot less physical, but their movement is much more complex. So the start paddle dyno for this climb was breakable, but I forced it just to work on my paddles a little bit. And the second dyno was made up by my athletes Josh and Tom, and it requires a good amount of commitment, so it was a good mental test for the athletes. The orange holds are pretty far away and they're not great, so you really have to trust yourself to hit them well enough to just paddle off to the purple hold or just hold on to the orange holds. So for this next climb, I modified it to make it a little bit harder. I took off a foot that I had given the athletes, but only the start was really tricky. It's like the sideways dyno to that foot land was pretty precise because the foot's around a quarter, but then the top was a little bit technical and then just a little hop to the finish. Alright, these next two climbs are just variations of each other, and it's just kind of like a walk across on these good feet. The wall's a little bit slabby, but not enough that you can just stand on the feet, so it does require you to have some momentum to stay close to the wall. And I wish I had more time to make more slabby technical climbs for the athletes, but unfortunately I didn't, and being able to trust your feet and use your feet really intentionally on slab is definitely a really important part of competition climbing. And this final flow is just a fun challenge I came up with, so I just wanted to make this a run across a little bit harder, so I added a little 360 in it, and it was quite a challenge for me. It took me a good bit. Alright, this next flow was really fun and required a lot of commitment and trust in the shoulders. For when I wasn't able to do the flow, I didn't think I had to jump that hard to the green fortune cookie hold, like a normal paddle, like you don't jump too hard to the paddle hold. But since I was pulling through really hard on the one arm, I had to jump really hard so I could just carry my momentum to make it to the next hold. The rest of the climbs aren't really makeups. The first one is an extension to this kind of technical black climb that one of my friends Frank told me about.
Come on! Oh my god. Nice. Eddie. Come on. Come on. Nice. Come on. Yeah. He's really that guy. Come on. You're not that guy.
And then the rest of these climbs are just from the DC bouldering project. There's a really fun paddle dyno on one of them, and then the other one was a little bit anti-style for me because it was kind of crimpy, but it was pretty fun and kind of 3D because it used those big hexagon volumes. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope it provided some insight into what I think about when doing competition style movements and making up comp style boulders. And the next episode will probably be a little bit more about my strength training for climbing, so definitely check that one out.